Apple spent 10 years telling you your data never leaves your device. That was the whole pitch. Privacy as a product feature, not a marketing line. Now they've released Apple Intelligence, and users are discovering their photos, messages, and emails are being processed on remote servers they can't audit. This sounds like a betrayal until you see the constraint that makes it unavoidable. By the end of this video, you'll know what Apple actually changed, why the fury is justified and overblown, and what this reveals about the impossible trade-off every AI company is facing right now. December 2024, Apple rolled out iOS 18.2 with Apple Intelligence features to all iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 16 users. Within 72 hours, Reddit forums, Twitter threads, and tech YouTube exploded with a unified complaint: Apple lied about privacy. The specific triggers were notification summaries that require sending message previews to Apple's servers, image generation tools that upload your photo library metadata to train models, writing tools that process emails and documents in the cloud, not on device. Users aren't mad about buggy features, they're mad because this contradicts a decade of Apple's core brand promise. And the anger isn't coming from fringe privacy advocates or conspiracy theorists, it's coming from mainstream iPhone users who believed Apple when they said privacy was non-negotiable. Here's what Apple said for years. 2016, "We believe privacy is a fundamental human right," Tim Cook said in a keynote. That wasn't a throwaway line. It became the foundation of Apple's entire marketing strategy for the next decade. 2019, Apple runs billboard ads in Vegas during CES that read, "What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone." They put these up directly across from the convention center, where Google, Amazon, and Facebook were showcasing products that hoovered up user data. The message was clear: we're different. 2021, app tracking transparency launches. Apple positions itself as the anti-surveillance tech company, directly challenging Facebook and Google's business models. Mark Zuckerberg publicly complained that Apple's privacy features would cost Facebook billions. Apple leaned into that criticism. Users were happy, and now they feel betrayed. Then generative AI happens. ChatGPT launches in November 2022. By mid-2023, every major tech company is racing to embed LLMs into their products. Microsoft integrates GPT-4 into Windows and Office. Google puts Gemini into Search and Android. Samsung announces Galaxy AI. Apple has a problem. The best AI models are too large to run entirely on device. GPT-4-level reasoning requires server-side inference, multimodal tasks, analyzing images, generating text, and cross-referencing your photos with your calendar need computing that an iPhone chip can't handle alone. This isn't a software problem Apple can engineer around. It's a physics problem. The thermal limits of a phone, the battery constraints, the memory bandwidth, all of it makes running frontier AI models locally impossible with current technology. So Apple makes a choice to build Apple Intelligence with a hybrid architecture. Some tasks are on device, some tasks on private cloud compute servers, and that's where the fury starts. Now here's the part people miss. Apple didn't lie, but they did change the rules without a clear enough explanation. The transition from everything on your device to some things on our secure cloud servers is a massive shift in the privacy model, and Apple buried that shift in technical documentation that 99% of users will never read. So let's break down what's actually happening. Apple Intelligence isn't one thing. It's 3 types of AI features, each with different privacy architectures. And understanding these categories is crucial to understanding why people are so angry. First, fully on-device features running on your iPhone's A17 Pro or M series chip. Things like suggested replies in messages, smart photo search for basic queries like dog or beach, and text prediction in notes. These never touch a server. Your data stays encrypted on your phone. This is the privacy model Apple promised, and it still exists for these specific features. The problem? These are the least impressive features. The AI capabilities here are comparable to what Google was doing 5 years ago. They're useful, sure, but they're not the cutting-edge AI that Apple is marketing. Second, private cloud compute. This is where things get complicated. This handles complex Siri requests that need reasoning like, summarize my last 10 emails about the project. Advanced image analysis that can identify complex scenes or generate detailed descriptions. Writing tools that rewrite paragraphs or generate summaries of long documents. These require more computing than your phone can handle. So Apple built private cloud compute, a system where your request is encrypted before leaving your device. It's processed on Apple-controlled servers running custom silicon. The server forgets your data after processing using what's called a stateless architecture. And independent researchers can verify the server software. In theory, this is innovative. In practice, most users have no idea this is happening. They enable Apple Intelligence in settings, and suddenly their data is being sent to cloud servers without any clear indication of when or why. Third-party integration. If you ask Siri a question it can't answer, you can opt in to send it to ChatGPT. This is the only feature where your data leaves Apple's ecosystem entirely, and it requires explicit user permission each time. This is the most transparent of the three categories. Apple clearly tells you when you're about to send data to OpenAI, but it also highlights the contradiction. Apple will warn you about sending data to a third party, but they won't clearly warn you when they're sending your data to their own servers. Let's give Apple credit where it's due. Private cloud compute is genuinely innovative. No other company has built anything like it at this scale. Here's the claim. Private cloud compute is more private than Google or Microsoft Cloud AI. The proof? Apple publishes the server software images for security researchers to audit. This is unprecedented. Google and Microsoft don't let outside researchers examine the code running on their AI servers. Servers use Apple's own chips, not AWS or Azure, limiting third-party access. This means Apple controls the entire stack, hardware, software, and infrastructure. Cryptographic attestation ensures your device only talks to verified Apple servers. Your iPhone won't send data to a server unless it can prove it's running the correct audited software. No persistent logs, your data is processed and immediately discarded. Unlike Google, which explicitly uses your queries to improve their models, Apple claims they deletes everything after processing. So what does that mean? If this works as designed, it's the closest thing to privacy-preserving cloud AI that exists at scale. Apple is trying to thread an impossible needle, give users powerful AI features while maintaining stronger privacy protections than anyone else in the industry. But here's the constraint: you're still trusting Apple. You can't verify in real time that your specific request was deleted. You're trusting their architecture claims and third-party audits. You're trusting that Apple's internal security is strong enough to prevent breaches. You're trusting that Apple won't change its policies in the future. For some users, that's fine. For others, especially those who chose iPhone specifically because of the "what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone" promise, this is unacceptable. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Apple's marketing still says, "on your iPhone," and most users don't understand the distinction. The iOS 18 settings menu doesn't clearly explain which features use private cloud compute, how often your data is sent to servers, or what happens if a server is compromised. There's a single toggle for Apple Intelligence with no breakdown of what that actually means. Apple's own website still emphasizes on-device processing without the asterisk that says, "except when we need cloud servers for complex tasks." The marketing materials show glowing iPhones with AI features happening magically inside the device. They don't show data packets flying to data centers in North Carolina. The claim is that the backlash is partly justified because Apple buried the technical details. How do we know this? Well, the private cloud compute white paper is 30 pages of dense cryptography, not accessible to average users. It discusses homomorphic encryption, secure enclaves, and cryptographic attestation. Protocols. This is expert-level security documentation. Settings toggles for Apple Intelligence don't differentiate between on-device versus cloud features. You can't say yes to on-device AI, no to cloud AI. It's all or nothing. Notification summaries, a cloud feature, are enabled by default with no clear warning. Users discover this is happening only when they dig through settings or read tech blogs. What does that mean? Users think they're getting the old privacy model. They're actually getting a hybrid model that's better than competitors, but worse than Apple's previous standard. The average iPhone user doesn't know that when Siri summarizes their emails, that data is being sent to a server. They assume it's happening locally because that's what Apple conditioned them to expect. The constraint is that if Apple had been upfront and said, some AI features require cloud processing, but here's how we protect you, the backlash would be smaller. Transparency builds trust. Apple chose opacity, probably because they were worried about scaring users away from AI features entirely. Very soon, we'll see Apple revise its privacy dashboard and add more granular controls. The current implementation feels rushed, like they prioritize shipping features over explaining them properly. If they don't fix this, regulatory scrutiny, especially in the EU, will force it. European regulators are already investigating AI companies for GDPR violations. Apple won't get a pass just because they're Apple. Here's the constraint Apple can't escape. Large language models are computationally expensive. This isn't about Apple being lazy or greedy. It's about fundamental limitations in current technology. The numbers tell the story. GPT-4 has an estimated 1.7 trillion parameters. Each parameter is a weight in a neural network that helps the model make predictions. Running inference on a model that size, meaning actually using it to generate text or analyze images, requires around 100 gigabytes or more of VRAM, multi-chip coordination where multiple processors work together, and specialized cooling to prevent the hardware from overheating. The iPhone 16 Pro has 8 gigabytes of RAM, an A18 Pro chip that's powerful but not server class, and battery constraints that make sustained AI inference impractical. You can't burn 20% of your battery for one AI query. Users would riot. The math doesn't work. You cannot run frontier-level AI entirely on a phone. Not in 2026, not in 2027, maybe by 2030 with new chip architectures like neuromorphic chips or quantum processors, but not today. And even then, battery technology would need to make equivalent leaps. Apple had 3 options when it decided to enter the AI race. Option A, only offer on-device AI. That means limited capabilities, no competitive features like ChatGPT-level reasoning. Apple would have AI that can suggest text completions and sort photos, but nothing that competes with what Google and Samsung are offering. They'd be laughed out of the market. Option B, use third-party cloud AI from Google, OpenAI, or Microsoft, but lose control over privacy. This was never really an option for Apple. Their entire brand is built on not trusting Google and Microsoft with your data. Partnering with them for core AI features would be brand suicide. Option C, build private cloud compute. A hybrid model, new infrastructure, trust but verify. This is what they chose. It's the best solution given the constraint. It lets them offer competitive AI features while maintaining more control over privacy than option B. But it's still a compromise. It's still a step back from the absolute privacy model they marketed for a decade. Apple chose option C because it was the least bad option, but that doesn't mean users have to like it. Now, the uncomfortable question, is this actually worse than what Google and Samsung are doing? Let's see here. Reality check the backlash by comparing Apple Intelligence to the competition. Because if Apple is still ahead on privacy, then maybe the fury is overblown. Google Gemini on Pixel phones processes most AI queries on Google Cloud servers. There's no pretense of local processing for complex tasks. It explicitly uses your data to improve models. You can opt out, but it's buried in settings under multiple menus. There's no public audit system for server infrastructure. You have to trust Google's internal security, which has a spotty track record. The privacy policy allows data retention for service improvement, which is vague enough to mean almost anything. Samsung Galaxy AI uses Google's models and Samsung's own servers, which means your data potentially touches two different companies' infrastructure. Some features require a Samsung account, so your data is linked to your identity permanently. There's no equivalent to private cloud compute's stateless architecture. Samsung keeps logs. They have to because their systems aren't designed to forget. Apple's approach is more on-device processing than its competitors, a public audit system for cloud servers, no data retention for model training by default, opt-in for third-party integrations like ChatGPT. The claim is that Apple Intelligence is still more private than Android AI alternatives, but Apple's timing is terrible. This rollout happens while the EU's Digital Markets Act is forcing Apple to open up iOS. GDPR enforcement is targeting AI companies for training on user data without consent, and the UK's proposed AI Safety Institute is pushing for mandatory audits of AI systems. European regulators are already suspicious of American tech companies. They've fined Google billions for antitrust violations and privacy breaches. They've forced Apple to allow third-party app stores. They're not going to give Apple a free pass on AI privacy just because Apple has better marketing than Google. If private cloud compute has any vulnerability, or if researchers find Apple retains data longer than claimed, regulators will hammer them. The fines for GDPR violations can reach 4% of global revenue. For Apple, that's potentially billions of dollars. Best case? Private cloud compute becomes the gold standard, and Apple licenses the architecture to others. They turn a PR crisis into a competitive advantage. Other companies adopt stateless cloud AI because Apple proved it's possible. Apple becomes the trusted AI infrastructure provider for the industry. Worst case? A security breach exposes user data. Apple faces billion-dollar fines, and the entire privacy-first AI narrative collapses. Users discovered that private cloud compute wasn't as secure as advertised. The backlash escalates from online complaints to class action lawsuits. Apple's brand as the privacy company is permanently damaged. Right now, the backlash is mostly online. Tech forums, Twitter threads, YouTube comments, but here's what could escalate it into a real crisis. Scenario 1. The feature creep. Apple starts enabling more cloud-based features by default. iOS 18.3 adds new AI tools that require server processing. iOS 19 expands cloud AI even further. Users discover their data is being processed more often than they realized. A class action lawsuit alleges deceptive marketing, arguing that Apple promised privacy and delivered surveillance. Scenario 2. The opt-out movement. Power users organize a campaign to disable all Apple Intelligence features. They create tutorials showing exactly which settings to toggle off. Tech YouTubers make how to turn off AI and protect your privacy videos that go viral. Millions of users follow the guides. Apple is forced to add a single disable all cloud AI toggle in settings because the PR pressure becomes unbearable. Any of these scenarios could happen. The question is whether Apple moves fast enough to prevent them. The lesson in all of this is that you cannot have cutting-edge AI and absolute privacy, not with current technology. This isn't an Apple problem, it's an industry problem. Every company building AI products is facing this trade-off. If you maximize privacy, you get all processing on-device, no cloud servers, and limited AI capabilities like basic predictions and simple search. Your data is completely secure because it never leaves your physical possession, but your AI features are years behind what competitors offer. If you maximize AI capabilities, everything goes in the cloud. Your data is used to improve models, and you get powerful features like reasoning, multimodal generation, and personalization. Your AI assistant can actually understand context and handle complex tasks. but your privacy is compromised because companies need your data to train better models. Apple's middle path gives you a hybrid architecture, privacy-preserving cloud if it works as designed, and good AI features that are competitive but not best in class. It's a compromise that tries to balance both sides. If you're deciding whether to use Apple Intelligence, here's the honest breakdown of your options. Use it if you trust Apple's architecture claims and independent audits, if you believe that private cloud compute works as advertised, and that Apple is genuinely trying to protect your privacy better than competitors. Use it if you want AI features and accept that some tasks require cloud processing. If you're willing to make that trade-off for convenience. Use it if you care about privacy relative to Google or Microsoft. Apple is still better on that front, even with the compromises. Don't use it if you define privacy as nothing ever leaves my device, period. If that's your standard, Apple Intelligence doesn't meet it, and Apple shouldn't have marketed it as if it did. Don't use it if you don't trust any company with cloud-based AI processing, regardless of their security claims. Some people simply don't trust corporations with sensitive data, and that's a valid position. Don't use it if you're willing to give up features for absolute local control. If you'd rather have a dumber phone that respects your privacy completely, turn off Apple Intelligence and stick with basic iOS features. The honest answer is, there's no perfect option. You're choosing between trade-offs, and you need to decide which trade-offs you can live with.